This is RN Breakfast with Fran Kelly.
Chris Bowen was a senior cabinet minister under Julia Gillard. He resigned and sent himself to the backbench after the aborted challenge of Kevin Rudd earlier in the year. And in those months, he penned a book on how to revive what he calls the Labor project. It's called Hearts and Minds, a blueprint for modern Labor. And he's back now in the breakfast studio as Australia's new treasurer. Treasurer, welcome to breakfast.
Thanks, Fran. Good morning.
Bob Carr says there's so many books written about what's wrong with Labor, it's become a genre like vampire fiction. Why have you decided to add a book to that list?
Well, I haven't, because this is a positive book which says that Labor has a bright future, that Australia needs Labor, that our project isn't over, that we still have work to do, but that we do need to modernise, that if we want to grow, we want to be strong, we need to be an inclusive party, an open party, a party welcoming to people from all walks of life. And we do need to be very crisp in what we believe in our explanation of what we believe. And I make the case that we have something unique to provide to Australia because we believe in economic growth, we believe that lifts people out of poverty, and we believe in opportunity. We believe in opening up opportunities to people so that they can grow to be everything they have the potential to be. And I think that's something that the Liberal Party doesn't bring to the table and the Greens Party doesn't bring to the table. I think because of our experiences, our learned knowledge, we bring that to the table. But I do make the point organisationally that our structures haven't changed in a long time. Many of them are still based on the 1950s and at the very least the 1970s, and the world has changed. Australia has changed, society has changed, and we need to modernise as well if we're to grow and be strong. And I think we can then, if we do that, turn that into quite a significant advantage over our rivals.
I'll come to the structure in a moment, but just to stick with what you say, you need to be crisp in what you believe in. Since 1996, I think, the criticism of Labor has been it doesn't stand for anything, it doesn't know what it stands for, searching for a narrative. Can you give us the crisp definition, or is it that growth and opportunity?
I think it is the growth and the opportunity. I think it is saying that we believe in economic growth, which the Greens to our left don't. But we believe very much in government intervention to provide opportunities so that if you're an Indigenous child from the outback, or you're the son of a merchant banker from Sydney's North Shore, or the daughter of a single parent from Melbourne's western suburbs, that you have the opportunity to grow and be everything you have the potential to be. And that is what, to me, government intervention is all about, to achieve that. And I think we need to
It's funny because the Liberal Party has the same essence but says the answer to that is not government intervention, it's to get government off the back.
Well, yeah, but see, you can't say you believe in the individual and then say, but if you happen to be an individual who's born on the wrong side of the tracks, then the government shouldn't intervene to give you some assistance. I'll give you one example, just to put it in the current context. I mean, schools funding reform, better schools. It's all about more funding for disadvantaged schools. It's about giving every child the same level of funding with loadings for people with particular disadvantages. Now, Tony Abbott says the system's not broken. Well, I think it is. I think it is broken. And I think that's just one current example to put that philosophical debate in the context of the current political debate.
Now, you're right on the money, it would seem, because on the question of Labor Party reform, you propose in print in this book what Kevin Rudd announced just last week, that the Labor leader be elected by a 50-50 split between rank-and-file members of the party and the caucus. Did you give him that idea?
We talked about it, obviously.
So yes, you did.
Well, but he's believed in this reform himself and been promoted himself, and of course we tossed around in terms of conversations how it could be done, and what I put in the book was my idea, and I'm very pleased that he has gone with something very, very similar to that as his proposal. It's a reform that I strongly support. It's the big one, frankly. I propose, I think, 7 reforms in the book. This is the big and I think the most important one, which, for the reasons that he has outlined and I argue for in the book, do go to opening up the party, giving ordinary party members a say in one of our most important decisions, and providing a spirit of inclusiveness with our party membership.
Inclusiveness is a big theme of your book, and you've mentioned it before. You need to modernise the party. It needs to reflect Australia today. You want other interest groups to have a vote, more than the unions. At the moment, you have to be a union delegate to be at the conference to have a vote. Why would other groups be interested, do you think, to have a vote at Labor's national conference?
Well, look, again, Fran, this is one idea, and the point I'm making is that we shouldn't, in my view, cut our union links. The Labor Party was formed by trade unions.
But certainly you're talking about diluting them.
Well, I'm building on them. building on them. I would put it in those terms. I do think we want to be a party which is open to people who have small businesses, welcoming of people with small businesses, welcoming of people who work in the business world, welcoming of people from all walks of life. Now, that doesn't mean, to my way of thinking, cutting our union links, but it does mean things like more rank and file representation at our national conference. It does mean things like moving away from the rule that you should be a union member to join the Labor Party, with the rule which is hardly ever enforced these days anyway. But
some of these ideas, though, that you're proposing here, some of them were defeated at the last national conference. Is the problem that those who hold power in the Labor Party don't want to give it up? Under the current structure, that's the end of it.
Reform's never easy, and not all of these things are going to happen overnight. And I think, as I say, Kevin, through his leadership, has provided the big one, the one that's really important, and a big call for him to do it before the election. But I think he showed that leadership, and it's a very good thing. But I do think this is a conversation that the party needs to have. Now, organisational reform will never be easy. Gough Whitlam didn't find it easy in the 60s. But it was important for Labor's return to office in terms of modernising and showing that we were in touch with the views of Australians. I do think that all political parties, frankly, should be going through this process. I think if we do it, we can actually have an advantage. And I think it would actually have a pretty big impact on the body politic in Australia, and I think other political parties might be forced to follow.
It's 11 minutes to 8 on Breakfast. Our guest this morning is the new Treasurer, Chris Bowen. He's written a book, Hearts and Minds, a blueprint for modern Labor. Treasurer, if I can turn to your portfolio now, you've replaced Wayne Swan as Treasurer. Wayne Swan was lauded overseas for his work steering Australia through the GFC. He's the world's best finance minister. Yet the Rudd-Gillard, the Swan-Gillard government never really got the credit at home for its work on the economy. Have you figured out why?
Well, I think when people come to write about the government, as I've done in the book, for example, the economic growth achievement is the substantial one, and Wayne Swan and Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard all deserve credit for that. To grow our economy by 13% when the rest of the world has contracted over that time, to create almost 1 million jobs, and to do so all with low government debt by world proportions is a major achievement.
Yet you ask the Australian public in the polls and they think the coalition's best to handle the economy.
Sure, and that's a challenge for us, and it's a challenge that I'll be embracing in the lead up to the election. Obviously, exposing not only the flaws in the opposition's argument, which are many, but also highlighting both our record, but also building on our record. What Labor governments do is manage transitions, and our economy is in a transition at the moment. We're in a transition away from the mining investment boom, and that will take careful economic management. And that's what Kevin Rudd and I have been working on, and it's what I think is a key difference in the lead up to the election. Our economic record, yes, but not just running on our record, also running on our plans for dealing with this change. And you saw, if you like, the first instalment of that yesterday with the Prime Minister's National Press Club address. All
right, let's talk about your plans, because you said, and I'm quoting you here, you are sticking to the budget strategy of the Gillard government. So the Rudd-Bowen economic plan is the same as the Gillard-Swan economic plan, a surplus in 2015-16?
Well, that's the fiscal plan, Fran. That's one part of the economic plan, of course. But yes, we are sticking to the fiscal strategy of returning the budget to balance in 2015-16. That's right. We think that's the right balance. To race back to surplus now would be a hammer blow to economic activity. That wouldn't be sensible.
What about to push that out, should it come to that?
And that's not our plan either. We think, with all the evidence in front of us, the right fiscal strategy is to return the budget to surplus and to balance in 15-16 and to surplus beyond that. Now, obviously, that is not without its challenges, and obviously you respond to circumstances as they emerge, but that is our strategy.
The challenges are coming. There's plenty written about that. Have you, as Treasurer, had any new revenue estimates? Are there fresh signs that the revenue estimates are soft?
I've been as transparent about this as I can be and said that terms of trade reductions are having an impact on our economy, on our government revenue. They're down substantially. Even since budget, we've seen iron ore, gold and both types of coal come down, so that does have an impact and that'll need to be managed. Against that, you've had the Australian dollar fall, which is good for government revenue, so all this will need to be calibrated as we go, and there'll be updates provided in the normal way.
A fair bit of calibrating, I would think. So far, Kevin Rudd has flagged moving to a floating carbon price a year early, restoring funding to universities, lifting the New Start unemployment benefit. Just those initiatives alone, should they come to fruition, would cost around $5 billion at least. Do you see your role as being the brakeman for Kevin Rudd?
No, not at all. And there's a lot of speculation around about what a new Prime Minister would do, what a new Treasurer, what a new government
Well,
would
a few
do.
hints being handed out.
Of course, there's a lot of speculation, and Kevin's made it clear that there's a cabinet process, and that process is underway, and that includes the Expenditure Review Committee, which is myself, Penny Wong, other key senior ministers, David Bradbury, and other senior ministers. So that's a process which is well established through the government's life, and that's the process that will apply. And we have made it clear that offsets will apply to new spending measures. That's a necessary part of your fiscal strategy of returning to balance. That's how it gets achieved.
That's a lot of offsets. Yesterday, Kevin Rudd didn't rule out moving more quickly from the $24 a tonne fixed carbon price to the floating European price, which is around $6.50 a tonne. Have you asked your Treasury officials to crunch those numbers to see exactly how much that would cost?
Well, Fran, as the Prime Minister's made very clear, there's a cabinet process, and the cabinet process has hanging off it a whole range of other bureaucratic processes. I'm not going to provide an update or running commentary on those as they go. This is a very fine program. It's not the cabinet table, and that's where I have my say and provide my updates.
Well, what about a matter that is very much now that Holden has put into the news? It wants an extra $265 million to stay making cars in this country. That's almost double what they've already been offered by state and federal government. This looks and sounds like industrial blackmail. What's your response to
Well,
Holden?
I heard the Industry Minister, Kim Carr, talking about this yesterday, and he said that wasn't a figure that he'd seen in his work on this project. So obviously he's in close contact with Holden. Car manufacturing is important to us. I know that car manufacturing won't exist in Australia if the Liberal Party proceeds with their plans to slash industry support. I understand industry support for car manufacturing is controversial. I come, as is clear from the book, from a generally free market approach to these matters. So I do understand the arguments, but I also do understand that with the higher levels of subsidy and protection for car manufacturing around the world, that you do need to make steps to ensure that car manufacturing, which has important flow-on effects through our economy, provides a whole range of other jobs, not just the jobs directly in the car factories, is important.
But you're already subsidised, and government's already subsidised. Is Holden is going too far by asking for more? Would you even consider more?
No, well, we'll keep talking to Holden about their challenges and about their needs. I'm not going to, again, with all due respect, conduct that process through this radio program. That'll be a conversation which Kim Carr, on behalf of the government, undertakes. And, of course, the whole of government rigours and processes would apply to any request from any manufacturer for that sort of assistance.
Chris Bowen, thank you very much for joining us on Breakfast.
Always great to see you, Fran. Thanks.
Chris Bowen is the new Treasurer of this country, and his book, A Blueprint, it's called Hearts and Minds, A Blueprint for Modern Labour, published by Melbourne University Press. It's amazing what politicians can do when they've got some time on the back bench. It's 4 minutes to 8 on Breakfast.
RN, your world unfolding.